We had the entire day to work. The party was tonight, and we had to do all we could to make everything right. We sat down and talked about what needed to happen before the party started that night. Each guy had been assigned a different part of the party to do, and right after lunch we began to work. Since everything was taken care of by at least one incubus, James told me I could assist one of them. The question was, who? Sam in the front yard. Alright. I walked out to the front yard to see Sam not cleaning, but doing slow motions with his hands and arms. He was doing Tai Chi, a form of martial arts I had previously learned aside from Taekwondo. It's an interesting little thing you two share. However, he wasn't cleaning, which made me cross my arms and glare at him. Aren't we supposed to be cleaning the front yard?
You were taking too long. I already finished cleaning.
What? Yeah, what? I looked around the front and noticed that the windows were polished, the weeds were pulled and tossed out from the sidewalk, the lamps were wiped down, and the stairs were swept. He really did finish cleaning. We literally disbanded a mere minute ago, though. Wow, you worked fast. Is that your magic? Sam didn't respond. He kept his eyes closed and continued to do his Tai Chi. For a guy who wanted to be a badass, I would have imagined him doing hard workouts or karate moves for practice. Tai Chi was not what I expected out of him. He's got to focus the mind as well as the body. I stood there wondering what to do. Join him? If you can't clean with him, join him. I remained quiet as I stood beside him and began to move along with his movements. He was going slow, so it was easy to follow along.
What are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing?
This isn't supposed to be fun, okay? It's actually supposed to be difficult.
I know. Sam opened an eye to look at me without breaking his motions before closing it and continuing. I followed along flawlessly, keeping to his speed. It was very relaxing, until I managed to trip over my feet and land on Sam. How did you manage that?
Oof! Hey! Watch it!
Sorry! I had landed on top of Sam, staring eye to eye with him. Sam and I couldn't stop blushing, nor did either of us move from the ground. I could hear my heart pound against his chest. Sam didn't move a muscle, but just stared up at me in embarrassment. He looked more angry than embarrassed. I eventually moved up off of him and brushed myself off with a large blush on my face. Sam sat up and rubbed his head.
Man, watch where you're going next time.
I nodded. He stood up and looked at me for a moment. I could see in his eyes that he was concerned if I was okay, but he refused to ask. I smiled before walking back into the house. I heard him sigh before I walked out of earshot. My goodness, what shenanigans. The hour of the house party had arrived. In my mind, I kept double and triple checking the essentials for the party. Knowing my dad, he invited his business partners and the executives of the Anderson Company to show me off. I stood in front of my mirror in my room, staring at my form as a million thoughts ran through my mind. It was just a housewarming party, but at the same time, it wasn't. This is also where I'm going to do, like, a very Sam thing and, like, pick options opposite to what my dad would have wanted from me. Be very, like, in your face to the guests, which is gonna be interesting. It was my chance to show my dad that I was better than his expectations. Nope. It was a chance for me to see my parents as a woman. It was my test to see if I was really ready to live on my own. Well, not truly alone. I had the incubi to thank, but even so, I didn't have my dad guiding me or my mom helping me through living alone. A knock on my door broke my thoughts, surprising me. Who is it?
Hey, are you okay in there? Your parents should be here soon, so you should hurry getting ready.
Well, I'm ready, but...
But what? I'm sure you look fine, Anderson. Just come on out.
All right. As soon as I opened the door to the hall, I watched as Naomi's and Susie's faces turned from smiles to complete awestruck stares. What?
Dude, you look hot. Yeah, you look amazing. Where did you get that dress?
I've had it for a while. I just never had the chance to wear it. I figured I might as well bring it out now. I stepped out of my room and closed my bedroom door behind me. As I walked down the hall to the grand lobby, the incubi stood waiting for me at the bottom, all dressed to the nines as proper servants.
Whoa! They really know how to dress well, don't they?
Yeah. I was slightly taken aback on how great the boys looked in uniform. Each had the poise of a perfect gentleman, even Sam. I slowly began to climb down the steps with Suzu and Naomi behind me. The boys watched as I descended the staircase one step at a time, like knights waiting for their princess. I felt my face slightly flush, but I quickly shook my head to try and regain my thoughts. As I reached the last step, James offered his hand out to me and walked me down that final step smiling.
As beautiful as a princess, miss.
Thank you.
So, are you prepared for tonight?
To be honest, no. I didn't feel confident at all. Something about tonight frightened me. I couldn't tell if it was the fear of my dad or of the guests that Dad surely invited, but something about tonight's party left me beyond nervous. The other boy smiled assuringly at me, which made me feel a little better about everything. I looked at my phone and marked the time. Almost right on cue, the doorbell rang. I could practically feel my dad's aura from behind the door. Sam and Eric quickly rushed to the door and opened the double doors wide to reveal my parents, both dressed in their best. Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad.
Oh my, I didn't know your bequeathment came with servants.
It was probably overlooked. Besides, who would deny good service?
I was completely shocked. My parents didn't question the boys? They didn't ask for verification or anything? I looked to the boys and noticed Sam and Eric staring intently at my parents. Were they using their powers on them? They had to be. There was no way they'd be okay with this otherwise.
I guess the servants counted as belongings to the house.
My mother quickly rushed to me and gave me a large hug. I hugged her back, inhaling her perfume. It had only been a couple days, but living away from the ones who raised me was hard. My mother soon let me go and looked at my outfit.
Gorgeous. You look so lovely. David, look at your daughter and tell her I'm right.
I looked to my dad, who was looking around the lobby like an inspector. I stood my ground, waiting for him to look at me. When he did, he let a small smile grace his lips.
Your mother's right. You look like you're all grown up.
The world around me stopped as my heart pounded hard in my chest. Did my dad just compliment me? On his own accord? My mother was grinning ear to ear at his words. I was beyond speechless. Thank you, Daddy. However, his cold face quickly returned as he began to look around once again.
I assume that you're ready, then, to impress the rest of the guests, correct?
What do you mean?
The entire board from Anderson Toys is coming tonight. Even the vice chairman's son will be coming. All of them will be measuring your potential.
My potential?
To become CEO of the company.
I knew it. Something was off about tonight, and now this party had become much more than I anticipated. I gulped silently, but I nodded in response. I looked at the incubi, but they were continuing to be servants for my father's approval. I looked behind me and saw Naomi and Suzu raise their thumbs at me for encouragement. I let out a small breath before feeling my body accept the situation. I felt a weight in my gut, but I had to hide it. As if time zoomed forward, all of a sudden the main hall of the lobby was full of guests. Men and women in formal or business attire showed up to meet me and see my new home. I didn't expect many to come, but I was once again surprised that night. I shook hands with many officials and executive members, putting on the professional face my dad trained me to have. I felt overwhelmed, but I hid it well behind a small smile and handshake. Many even asked me questions. I tried my best to reply as maturely as possible. I had to remember, say what they want to hear, not what you want to say. But not this time.
So, how do you feel living on your own at such a young age?
I'm doing my best.
I'm so sorry about your grandfather passing away. It really hit all of us hard.
Sorry, but I don't want to talk about that.
Do you have college plans?
College. I don't need that. I felt like the questions came up one after another. It was tough to answer some of them because they weren't about me, they were about the company.
What do you think will happen with the company now that your grandfather has passed?
Don't ask me, I have no freaking clue.
What do you think of the philanthropic policy the company has?
This is so terrible. I don't really pay attention to it.
Do you think the company should expand from just toys?
It's a toy company. Why? Eventually, the questions stopped, and I was back to being by myself. I can't wait for my dad to yell at me. Naomi and Suzu were mingling in the crowds, and the incubi were doing their job, so I was all alone in a room full of strangers. It was unnerving to think about, but at least I wasn't being questioned left and right anymore. Suddenly, though, my mom pushed her way through the crowd to me, bringing along someone I didn't know.
Honey, I'd like to introduce you to someone. This kind gentleman is the son of the vice chairman.
With my mother stood a man who looked only a couple of years older than me. He smiled and held out his hand to me, silently asking for my hand.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lewis. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Anderson.
I will just nod. Andrew was slightly taken aback, but gently smiled and lowered his hand with a nod in return. My mother smiled at both of us, which made me slightly concerned. Why was she excited to introduce me to Andrew?
So, you organized this party very well, Miss Anderson.
Dots.
I apologize if I made you uncomfortable in some way.
Great, I made my mom and my dad angry. Andrew then chuckled nervously, bringing a soft fist to his lips to cover his laugh properly before smiling at me.
I'm sorry if I seem a little forward. I've just been excited to meet Harold Anderson's granddaughter.
Huh? Why?
He used to talk about you all the time in the office on how you helped him refine his toys. I only attended meetings and heard all of the stories. You've helped a lot with the success of the company without having to actually work there.
Oh, wow. I didn't know he talked about me. That would explain everyone's fascination with me and their rather personal questions. I looked at Andrew, who had a kind face to me. Something about him seemed off, and I didn't know what it was. He seemed to be hiding something. Whether it was good or bad, I was not able to find out. I felt someone walk up beside me, causing me to turn to them. Next to me was my dad, giving his cold stare to Andrew, who suddenly became tense.
So, you're Jared's son.
Andrew's body twitched slightly. Whether it was fear or insult, Andrew locked eyes with my father. I couldn't help but feel the tension between them. It irked me how fragile the air had become, enough to break at the wrong word.
You're the one who wants to be the next CEO of the Anderson Company.
Well...
I stared at Andrew. This guy wanted to take my grandfather's place as CEO? I thought the vice chairman wanted the position.
David, leave the poor boy alone.
I'm merely testing the boy's conversational skills. Nothing wrong with that.
Of course not, sir.
And polite as well. Interesting.
If you'll excuse me.
Quickly, Andrew retreated away from my family into the crowd of people. Stay put. I watched as he disappeared into the crowd towards the back of the house. I was worried, but I gave him his space. He obviously needed it.
He's not CEO material.
Neither am I.
That's because you practically interrogated the young man.
A little questioning shouldn't have bothered him. He's obviously not ready for any title in our company.
I bit my tongue. I didn't want to make a scene with my dad. One wrong word and he'd lecture me in front of everyone. That was not something that I wanted at my housewarming party. I looked at the clock. It was getting close to midnight, meaning that the party was going to end soon. I lowered my gaze out the window and saw a limo pull up. Huh? Whose limo is that?
Oh, that must be Lewis's car.
I'll go get him. Stay with your father so you can escort your guests out together.
Yes, Mom. My mother left my dad and me to slowly escort the guests out. My dad held his simple smile as he thanked each person for coming. I did the same. Andrew quickly passed the doors before I could speak. Eventually, only Suzu, Naomi, my parents, and the incubi were left. My dad looked at me in slight disappointment. I looked back at him in confusion. What did I do?
I overheard your conversation with our guests. You were stumbling as much as Lewis did.
But I
don't want to hear excuses. I expect that you'll work on your speaking skills while you remain living here.
Yes, sir.
All right. Your mother and I have to leave. I'm sure Naomi and Suzu need to leave as well. Just because it's Saturday doesn't mean you should stay up all night.
Ah, could have gone worse. Oh, right.
Thanks for having us. It was a great party. We'll come visit tomorrow or something. Alright?
Right. See ya.
Good night, sweetie. Come visit us soon.
Will do. All 4 of my remaining guests left the building, all but my dad waving back to me. With the last of the guests gone, I sighed and sat on the staircase, exhausted. Phew, that was tiring.
It's not like you had to do any work, though.
Give her a break, man. She was getting interrogated left and right.
She handled herself the best she could.
As expected, Princess.
Since you're exhausted, why not head to bed? We can clean up.
Ugh.
Oh, Sam.
Hush, Sam.
Are you guys sure?
Positive. It shouldn't take long.
Ho ho ho! It didn't take long to find you little shits after all.
Ho ho! I felt a hot shudder run down my spine. The voice from my dreams echoed through the air into my ears. I looked around, panicked, alongside the incubi. James placed a hand on my shoulder, trying to remain calm.
Don't worry. No one will hurt you.
Are you sure? Are you really sure?
All of us shot our heads towards the doors, finally pinning down the direction of the voice. The doors quickly swung open, revealing a sight I would have never expected to see. Skin red as blood, eyes black and gold piercing into mine, roughened up clothes, and a pistol in his hand. I saw a monster. I covered my mouth to not scream at the sight. Dried blood covered the bandana around his neck as he smirked at me and the boys around me. Beside the red-skinned man was a similar-looking woman in matching thug-like clothes.
Aw, what's the matter, boys? You really didn't think I wouldn't find you, did you?
I hoped you would, you piece of...
All of a sudden, the man raised his gun at Sam's face and instantly pulled the trigger. We all gasped in shock, instinctively expecting to see a bullet run through Sam's face. But...
What the fuck?
What?
What should have been a headshot ended with a loud but empty blank shot. The pistol echoed its empty shots as the man grew more and more pissed, pulling the trigger over and over in aggravation. Luckily for my ears, it became quieter after its first shot.
Why the fuck won't you work?
This place is protected.
What did you say, Shrimp?
This place has a seal, protecting it from hellborn magic.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Ah!
The man growled and threw his gun at Sam, who was able to dodge it in time. The pistol bounced off the ground a couple of times before sliding further away, hitting the wall in a final stop. As it stopped moving, the gun faded into black flame that disappeared into the air.
The previous owner had this place protected by magic, Malik's.
Malik's. That was his name. His existence resonated in my memory from the dream I had. However, I looked to Matthew in the same confusion as Malik's did. This place is protected by... magic?
It would seem that your grandfather had some sort of protective barrier around this house. From the looks of it, it only disables hellborn magic.
Malik's face grew to that of extreme anger, his fist tightening as if he was crushing a stress ball.
Then what's stopping me from dragging your asses out and shooting you then?
Out of pure instinct, I stepped forward and placed myself between Malik's and the boys. With no power, Malik's wasn't going to fight. I took that chance to stand up to him instead of being powerless like I was in the dream. Fuck off! Malik suddenly laughed wildly, staring at me in disbelief.
Whoa, whoa! Who let the bitch out of her cage? What is this? A reverse harem or something?
Ah! Got her. Malice grinned at me evilly, walking close to me. Duck! I ducked underneath Malix's incoming hand. I stared at his hand and his black flame tattoo in surprise as I took a couple steps back from Malix. Matthew and Damien stepped in front of me, guarding me from Malix with their arms.
A quick one. I'm liking you more and more.
Back off, Malix!
Don't start acting tough, you pathetic excuse of a demon. You need more protection than her.
Shut up!
Oh, did I make little Matthew cry? Why don't you just grow a pair?
Enough, Malix.
The woman, who had been standing in silence the whole time, planted a firm hand on Malix's shoulder. Malik looked back at her with a growl and a glare that could kill.
Since when did you get the guts to speak out of place?
We both know you've never controlled me. I want them dead just like you do. But now's not the time.
Fuck off! I know what I'm doing.
Do you? Even if you did fight them, there's 5 against 2. We never win.
Shut up!
Let's go, Malik! We're wasting our time!
The two growled at each other. If they could have used their magic, I could sense that fire would glow from under their teeth. Malik grunted and glared at the boys. He pointed at James, wanting so badly to use his fingers like a knife.
Just wait, pretty boys. We'll get you and fuck you up real good.
Then Malik turned to me, moving his finger to point directly between my eyes.
And don't think you're safe. Step outside. I dare you.
With that, Malik and the woman walked out of the mansion. The doors closed behind them, leaving the boys and I alone once again. I felt my knees give out from under me, forcing the boys to quickly turn to catch me.
Whoa, whoa! Are you alright?
Yeah. Why was he here?
He's been closely tracking us. Our blood trail from the forest must have led him here.
We should have stopped him and finished it here.
For once, Matthew, I agree with you.
I stood up and rubbed my arms, feeling the goosebumps Malik left behind on me. I couldn't stop myself from shivering in fear of his words. Malik's. Was he a demon?
That son of a bitch is not a demon. He's a devil.
A devil? There's a difference?
Yes. Demons come from a different plane of existence called the Abyssal Planes. Devils, however, come from one of the 7 circles of a place humans know as hell. Despite us not being human, we are very different creatures.
We actually have brains, for one. Devils always like to cause trouble and try to kill or torture others for their own enjoyment. Demons, like us, know when to use our powers and when not to. We're not stupid.
Devils follow orders from higher-ups in their order, and their power only comes from their connection to hell. Demons all have free wills and don't rely on where they came from to use their powers.
This was all so confusing. Demons and devils and magic all existed, and I happened to land in the middle of it. What do we do?
You're safe. You've been protected as well.
What?
What Damien's saying is that the magic that protects this place also protects you.
Your grandfather must have cast it when you last saw him or something of that nature. We can sense its aura around your body.
I couldn't believe my ears. It was the 3rd day of surprises, and this one took the cake in being the most surprising. I felt my head spin once again. What did I get myself into?
Miss, please don't worry. We'll find a way to train ourselves and become stronger to finally finish this feud.
I'm gonna kick his ass right now!
Until then, we'll protect you as much as we can. If Malik comes back, we'll be here for you.
But what about going outside? Won't he...
Like we said, you have a protection spell on you. Even if Malik attacks you, he won't be able to use his magic on you. He'd be just like any other human you can fight back against.
Didn't you say you knew Taekwondo?
Well, yeah. I felt somewhat relieved that I was mostly safe from Malik's. Still, I could not help but feel very nervous and apprehensive about the future. The boys were safe here to train and become stronger, but what if Malik did the same? Even more so, I was lost about how my grandfather knew about magic. I had to find out. At least I had time. I went to bed that night feeling nervous. Despite the words of the incubi, I felt like a target to something I'd never be able to explain or prove. Magic? Devils? Demons? How did this all even happen? Should I really meddle with the situation? They are only staying until after they defeat Malik's. That's right. They said they'd only stay until after they defeated Malik's. After that, my life could go back to normal. Temporary insanity, as Kay would say. The question was then, would I want them to leave? If my life went back to normal, then I'd have to care for the house all on my own. I'd get to focus on my life instead of being distracted by the boys. I'd have to. My life. Where was my life going anyway? I was under pressure from my parents with only my friends and the boys to comfort me. Without the boys, I'd have no way to hide from my responsibilities. Enough. Let's just sleep and deal with tomorrow when it comes. Defeating my sense of thought, I forced myself to sleep, unsure of what tomorrow had planned for me. Hopefully, whatever the future had for me, I would be ready for it.
I promise to be with you forever. You're so important to me.
I swear I'll give my life to you.
Please, let me love you.
I'll be by your side, always.
I can't imagine living without you.
I want to be with you.
I love you.
I slowly opened my eyes, letting the voices of my dream echo in my head and force me awake. I rubbed my eyes before sitting up and looking at my clock. 7 a.m. Why am I up so early? I fell back onto the bed and closed my eyes, trying to go back to sleep. However, something kept me awake. Why? It's too early to even be alive. I gave up and sat up, staring at the fireplace across from my bed. I threw my legs over the side of the bed. What to do at 7 a.m. in the morning? We haven't done this yet. I'll work on homework. I had to work on my homework. I had school tomorrow regardless of what was happening in my life. At that moment, I wished school was over. Welp, might as well get it done now. I reluctantly took my books out of my bag that sat on the floor. I made my bed into a study picnic area as I began to work through my homework. The benefit of doing your homework in the morning? Not having to do it later. The downside? Mornings suck for trying to use your brain for anything educational. The formula for fixed costs is FC plus VC times Q equals TC. Marginal cost is total cost minus fixed costs. I felt my brain slowly start to ramp up the flow of logical thoughts, speeding up the time I was working on each economic equation I had. It wasn't a matter of me being smart about anything when it came to doing homework or doing well in class, but I was quick to learn and easily retained information. If only I could learn about the boys this fast. I stopped. Did I really just compare learning about demons to learning about economics? It's 7 a.m. It's too early to be alive, let alone make sense. I shook my head and continued to work. I returned to bed feeling the weight of the morning drag me under my covers to try sleeping again. I had energy, but I wanted more sleep. It was Sunday and nothing was happening today. Come on, eyes. Back to sleep.